Good evening, everyone. Breaking the silence in our hearts. Breaking the silence in our hearts. Very important call from the Lord that is very difficult, but it's something that we need to do. Breaking the silence. We see that both in the first reading and the gospel. Let's do a review and challenge. So let's challenge ourselves with regards to the gospel the last couple of weeks. Now, last week we talked about John the Baptist, the nativity of John the Baptist, and it was really about purpose. See, from the moment he came out of the womb, everyone around him was talking about what it will be the purpose of this child. And it gave us a moment to say, everyone in this room, every single one of us, has a purpose. And to think about that, well, gee, what is my purpose? Well, it's going to be different for every single one of us, but it's also going to be the same. And so, if we revisit this reality that God made us that we might know Him, love Him, and serve Him in this life so that we would be with Him forever in the next. And you're like, oh, Father, that's... that's out of the Baltimore Catechism, question 5. Yeah, it is. But if we really look at it, and whatever, let's say you're a fireman. I'm a fireman. Well, what am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? Well, to know God, to love Him, to serve Him in this life. So, as a fireman, what am I doing? See, our relationship with God and knowing those three things will imbue everything that we're doing in our set of circumstances. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Great. Think about that. All right. These are the types of things. I gave you an example of Chris Pratt. I don't know if any of you caught that on the internet. I'm not so much an MTV watcher, but I did happen to learn of what he did when he received the Generation Award. Now, if you don't know who Chris Pratt is, you watch Guardians of the Galaxy or any of the Jurassic Park movies or whatever. He's a movie star. For whatever reason, it's really stirred in his heart to realize that he's a child of God, that he's a son of God, and that when he received the award, he realized that he had a platform. And although he is a Hollywood actor, he had an opportunity to speak. He did. To speak for the Lord. And he did it. Tremendous. Now, he certainly was entertaining up until that point, but he came right out and said, I want you to know that you have a soul. Take care of it. And he went on, to really lift up the opportunity that each one of us has in knowing the God who has created us. So, what circumstances will you have in your day-to-day life that could be imbued with this simple purpose: to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him, so that ultimately I could be with Him forever in the next? Breaking the silence. What are we talking about? Well, I'm talking about within our hearts, that first reading in that first line where it says, God did not create death. So how many of us, when we've had a difficulty or a circumstance, did this? What are you doing? What are you doing? How many of us are filled with anger that we're constantly, spitting out these difficulties or these little chirps? And it's related to the fact that we haven't given voice to that which is in our heart. Lord, I don't understand this. See, the answer is original sin, and that death and sin entered the world through humanity, not through God. So if we learn a clear understanding and a difference between God's perfect will in our life and God's permissive will. Oh, my relative has cancer. Be careful. Don't say this because it's not true. Don't say this because it's not true. God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Stop it. Stop saying that. It's not true. Why? Because that statement assumes that it is God that gave you the cancer. He didn't. It's not his perfect will. It's part of original sin. Was something that they did? No. It's disorder and death in the world, and we're surrounded by it. Jesus breaks the silence. Your daughter is dead. Can you imagine the silence in that moment of that father and about what he's thinking? And it's just quiet. And Jesus breaks the silence and he says, "Do not be afraid. Have faith." See, in that moment, he raises the girl from the dead so that we would know that there will come a time where he will raise us from the dead. And that it's in the next life where we have full justice, the full manner of justice. But in this life, when something bad happens, it's not God's fault. But he is with us right in that difficulty or challenge, and he might even just carry us. We all familiar with that poem, Footprints in the Sand. How could you not be with me in my most difficult times? My child, it was in those times, the times where you couldn't go on, it was in those times that I carried you. Okay? It's not God that creates death and disorder, but it is God who pursued us with a personal, passionate, unrelenting love, so much so that he would carry us even through the difficult times. We gotta break the silence, though. We gotta say, this is what's really in my heart, Lord. I'm not happy with you. And we speak. And as we kind of talk and have a real conversation with the Lord, and we have that exchange, we realize it's not him. He's not the one giving this to us, but he is the one that is walking with us through the difficulty and the challenge. Let's break the silence. Let's talk to him in the depths of our heart.